Well, so wonderful to have you guys here today. This is our May Foundations of Reading webinar. This one is just for your information, give you some tools, some ideas, let you know a little bit about the exam, answer any questions. So very informal. And those of you that are interested in seeing my course, Fort Prep 101, if you want to stick around to the end, I will take you through and give you a sneak peek of what all of that actually looks like, kind of show you how you can easily navigate it and that sort of thing. All right, so welcome. First of all, here's what we're going to cover today. I want to make sure that you know a little bit about me. I know that you are looking for support and you have a lot of options out there. And so hopefully getting to know me, my teaching style, my experience, what I've done to help support teachers might help you to feel more comfortable to join me in your Fort journey. We'll talk about the type of teacher that I think I'm best fitted to help. We'll give a content overview of what the exam actually covers. We'll talk about the specific sub-area competencies, the specific Fort specifications, and then specifically more about my course, which is Fort Prep 101, and how that can hopefully support you on this journey. My name is Emily Muccianti. I am a reading specialist. I'm a 30+ year educator. I went through my career in California and spent 27 years in the classroom working with grades K-12. I spent 10 years in middle school. I spent about 15 years in elementary intervention, and about 5 years in high school. So there's a lot of years of experience there. But what I loved most really was supporting the teachers in their journeys, both as a mentor teacher, a master teacher, a coach, all of those things. And new teachers, which I've actually done solidly for about the last 6 years. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I actually began with our reading instruction competency exam in California, which is called the RICA. And this was the exam that I supported teachers with when I was teaching in California. And I'd actually have workshops in my classrooms. Teachers would come, and then COVID hit and we all got really good at Zoom. So we were able to take everything online and make this a lot more streamlined. The RICA has since been sunset in California, and now California, along with about 17 other states, require the Foundations of Reading exam as one of their requirements of credentialing. And so I have moved on to help support teachers with that journey because it is a monster. If you've started studying, you know, if you have that list of all of the things that you have to learn, it's pretty big. So my course, Fort Prep 101, is designed for new and aspiring teachers that are preparing for the Foundations of Reading test in any state. Now, you might hear it called the Fort 190 or 890. The 890 is the updated course number, but the content of the two is really exactly the same. So I don't want you to get confused about that. It's all the same. But again, 17, 18 states are now requiring this as one of the hurdles that teachers have to complete in order to get into the classroom. I'm also here to support test takers who are looking for a supportive, structured environment for a prep, their test prep by a guided mentor. Now, if you've been studying the practice exams or you have any books out there for your state for the Foundations of Reading, you probably have noticed that there is very little in the way of visual support or examples of what you actually have to know. And so I really built my course around engaging that visual learner. That's the way I learn. And so everything's really engaging, really succinct. It's in a very linear order, and we just go bam, 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 get the whole thing done. It's got quite the success, and I'm just super happy about that. One of the things that you may be feeling also is kind of that overwhelm with all of this science of reading content. That particular content is very challenging, and it's new for you as a new teacher. It's going to be very unfamiliar. And so it's going to feel like drinking from a fire hydrant. And so what I do is break that down so that it becomes digestible and you actually learn it. And this is really for those of you looking for a professional development experience that is not only going to prepare you for the exam, but also make you a better reading teacher. That is the entire purpose for these licensure exams, is to make sure that you have the tools and the skills that you need to be successful in the classroom. And so it really is professional development. And I hope that as you start the journey, you'll kind of start to embrace it for that. Now, again, this is required in 18 states. It is required in those states for elementary teachers and special education teachers, and there may be some variation by state. I know some states like Ohio are also requiring it of some of their intervention teachers, so there is a little bit of overlap and differences there. The focus of the exam is really about the science of reading and structured literacy. Structured literacy involves a great deal of synthetic phonics, some brain development, oral language. There's a lot of moving parts with that. And so that's really the focus of the exam. It is there to measure your foundational knowledge for effective reading instruction, because no matter what grade you teach, you are a literacy teacher. No matter if you're working with, secondary students or primary students, our goal is really the same. We have to help them navigate the text that they are required to use in those grade levels. And this, if for those of you in California, this is a different test structure than what the RICA was. So if you are somewhat familiar with the RICA, but it is a little more streamlined and more targeted. So I do have a comparison guide that will kind of lay out the side-by-sides of what is different between the RICA and the foundations of reading. If you are interested in that, if you are from California, I'm happy to share that with you. So those teachers that are taking this exam are also single subject credential candidates who are looking to add a multiple subject credential. So if you were a high school English teacher and you've really been interested in moving down into the elementary space, this is going to be a requirement for that. Some private school teachers that are looking to receive a multiple subject, an early childhood education specialist, an ed specialist, which is our special ed credentials. Those teachers are also required to have this. If you are a teacher that was prepared in another country and you want to validate your license in the United States, in one of those states, then you'll be required to take this. This is also, again, for all of those California teachers that did not pass this. Actually, it was by June 2025. I'm sorry, November. They had extended it, November 1 of 2025. And interestingly enough, if you are a teacher who was prepared via the Peace Corps, then they do require you to complete the foundations of reading. So the structure of this exam is 100 multiple choice questions and 2 constructed responses. These are considered mid-size constructed responses. They're about 150 to 300 word responses. And you are given 4 hours to complete the exam. This is taken in all one sitting. It is not broken down by sub areas. It's a long haul to sit there and complete it. There is a 15-minute tutorial at the beginning of your testing window, which will help you to learn how to navigate the site and the tools for the testing site itself. In order to pass, now the passing scores are going to vary by state, and each state, when you go to your credentialing site for your state, you will see the specifications. California right now has a passing score of 224, but all other states, or most other states, the standard passing score is 240. There's a couple of variations there, but again, check with your particular state for that. Now, as far as the scoring breakdown goes, 80% of your score is going to come from your performance on the multiple choice questions. Only 20% of your score will come from those two written responses. So if you're not a very comfortable writer, just know that if you have a really strong showing in that multiple choice area, the odds are well in your favor that you can still pass it. That doesn't mean we just disregard the constructed responses. These questions are challenging for sure, and so we want to pad that score as much as possible by using those constructed responses, which I talk a lot about in my course. Across the board, the general cost to take the exam when you register is $139. And each time you take the exam, you do have to pay that fee. So this is why you really want to start preparing early. You want to be well prepared, and you want to only have to take it one time. That's going because each time you retake it, it costs you more money. So the fort is broken down into sub areas, and there are 4 sub areas. The first 3 are really the bulk of the content. The last one is broken down into 2 sub area, almost a sub area, if you will, and that's just about the writing component. But the most content is going to come from sub area number 1. This is the foundations of reading development, and this is 35% of your score. And I'll get into the specifics of what is under each of these in a few slides. The second sub area is all about reading comprehension. This will also include vocabulary and academic language. And sub area 3 is all about reading assessment and instruction. So it's about how do we plan for instruction? How do we use assessment to guide our instruction? How do we interpret data to know what that is saying about the student's needs? Then the fourth sub area is the 2 constructed responses. And all we do here is take the first 2 sub areas, and now we are presenting our knowledge to this in an open response. So the content doesn't change. It's going to go back to measure your foundational reading skill knowledge and your reading comprehension knowledge, but it's going to ask you to apply that knowledge with either a student scenario that they're going to give you, or they're going to give you a set of data that you have to assess or analyze and provide a teachable need, and then make a plan for that student. But before we get into the specifics of these, I want to give you an overview of how reading develops, because no matter what you're doing here, in order to understand and really navigate the content for this exam, you have to have a broad and general understanding of how reading develops. Once you have that broad knowledge, then you can start really digging into the specifics, which are going to be where those test questions are coming from. So I go into this in great depth in my course, but I want to give you a little bit of just kind of an overview and a taste of this. So there are a few slides and images I want to share with you. The first one is called the simple view of reading. And what this is a visual representation that attempts to take a very difficult concept of learning to read, which is very complex, and break it down into its broad categories. And this is the best place to start, okay? So what we understand through the simple view of reading is that there are 2 main components that people need in order to read a text and comprehend it. The first is the ability to recognize the words in print. This is the decoding aspect of reading. This is where we are developing our phonological and phonemic awareness, which is the sounds and the manipulation of the sounds of language. We apply that with letter sound knowledge and correspondence with phonics. We develop that and hone it and refine it with our development of fluency. All of these give us the ability to look at a word and know what the word says. We can decode the word. The other part of this formula is the language comprehension aspect. This is all of the meaning. This is where we have the understanding of oral language. We understand what the vocabulary and the words actually mean. We understand the language concepts. We understand those pauses and syntax as we read and how that adds to our meaning. And it's really about the communication of an idea. So when we have this, which is our ability to look at the print, know what the print says, and we multiply that with our ability to understand what that language means, then the result is the ability to comprehend what is reading, what is being read. So the biggest takeaway I want you to recall and remember as you move forward is that reading comprehension is a product. It is not a single skill. It cannot be tested one way. It cannot be taught in one way. It is so many skills all put together. And those skills really begin with these here. Now, we can do some things to refine the comprehension of our students. We can give them tools and strategies to dig into more of the critical aspects of their comprehension. But from a general standpoint, if a student is unable to recognize the print on a page, say, for example, like a dyslexic student would have trouble with, they will not be able to read and comprehend what they're reading. Same thing is true if they could read all the words beautifully, but they didn't know what the words meant, such as many of our English learners. They also would lack in reading comprehension. And the reason I point this out is because too often teachers, parents, all of us approach reading comprehension the same way with both of those readers, and they have very different teachable needs. So that is the reason for digging into the content of this exam, because this is going to help you understand that. And as a teacher, that's what we want, right? We go into teaching because we love kids. We want them to learn to read. We want them to love to read. We were great readers. We loved it. We want to, open the world for them. But if we don't have some underlying knowledge about how to do this, we're throwing spaghetti against a wall and hoping it sticks. So that's really where I want to begin. We also can look here more specifically at this simple view with something called Scarborough's reading rope. And it takes the same concept. You see here, here's the word recognition side. Here's the language comprehension side. But now each of these is represented by a single strand in a rope. Each of these strands represents a single skill. Okay, so all of these skills have to be developed. And if I were to take, let's say I were to break this down and give this like bands of years, let's say this first band here, those skills are individually kind of developing around that K1 mark, right? They're not really woven together yet. And then we get them into first and second grade, and they start to kind of piece some things together. Hopefully by third grade, they're starting to really pull it together, and then we can have some skilled readers. That is our goal. But the problem is, again, when well-intentioned teachers that just don't have the knowledge, they will see, let's say, a sixth grader who comes to you presenting as a student who is unable to comprehend what they're reading. A teacher without this knowledge will perhaps think, well, they need to read more. I'm going to give them more comprehension questions. I'm going to give them more comprehension strategies to fix the problem. When the problem that is presented later can be the result of a deficit in any one of these earlier skills. So that is why it's critical that even our teachers of older students have all of this foundational knowledge. Anything can hinder this student's journey. Special ed teachers in most states, even if you're a high school special ed teacher, they have to pass this exam. And I sometimes get, the frustration. I work with high school kids. This isn't what I'm doing. Two realities about that. One, a special ed credential entitles a SPED teacher to teach K-12. So they have to be ready to move. They have to have the knowledge. The other is even a high school student, a sophomore, a junior, can still be lacking in any of these earlier skills. And their content area teachers will have no idea how to deal with that because that's not, they're content experts. Any questions about that? I love talking about this. It gets me all fired up. So feel free to, as always, drop any questions or just come off mute. Okay, so let's take it back now to the exam. So all of this knowledge that is a broad representation is now going to get funneled into these three, mainly the three sub areas. The first sub area is all about the foundations of reading development. This is mostly going to deal with that word recognition side of the formula. This is also going to deal heavily with younger children. So we're talking about phonological and phonemic awareness, the ability to hear the sounds in language, manipulate those sounds. We talk about the concepts of print for our early readers, the alphabetic principle. We can move into the phonics and word analysis, which is where we start to now apply some of those more complex strategies for reading larger words, reading words that have maybe more complex phonics patterns or multisyllabic words. And then we also really explore the relationship between oral language and written language. This is a really important aspect in the science of reading that has recently started to really gain some traction and some importance. It hadn't been at the beginning of the movement, if you will, but it's really starting to take off. And that's because the science is ever evolving and we're always learning more. So I'm happy that this part is in the exam because you're going to need it. It'll help your kids a great deal. That second sub area is going to focus on that middle and the product of reading comprehension. So we're dealing with vocabulary development, learning the meanings of words, comprehension strategies for both literary and informational text. We talk about how to develop academic language in our students. And this one specifically, I would make a note, this is also going to have questions that's heavy in dealing with diverse learners and English learners or multilingual learners. And that's because that language side of things obviously is the part that is really challenging for those particular kids. That third area is where we kind of pull it all together. This is all about assessment and instruction. And assessment is important to what we do because it should be driving our instruction. It should give us the information that we need using both formal and informal assessment to point out what the student's strengths are and what their weaknesses are so that we can then make well-informed and knowledgeable plans to help that student succeed. This is going to be really about analyzing and using data to guide instruction. There's going to be questions related to the differentiation and scaffolding of your instruction. I go into great depth on these in the course. And this will also get into how do we support students with some specific reading difficulties like dyslexia. Now, that sub area 4, again, it's not new content. It's just the reapplication of those first two sub areas into a constructed response. So the first constructed response is to prepare an organized, developed analysis on a topic related to the development of foundational reading skills. Again, you may be presented with a scenario. They may tell you, this is what the student read, this is what the student answered, here's your interaction with the student. You would have to then identify the student's strength, weakness, and then make a plan for the weakness. The second one is going to be almost identical, but the area is going to be related to their development of reading comprehension. It could also be giving you perhaps like a testing result. It could give you a running record. It could give you a fluency assessment. It could give you a miscue analysis, and you would have to go in and actually look at that, identify the need and the strength, and then make a plan again. So there are 2 writing tasks. Remember that these count for 20% of your score, where 80% of your exam actually passing score comes from the multiple choice. But it's analyzing data or a teaching scenario. And this is where you have to actually apply your knowledge of reading instruction. So in many of these situations, there may be more than one right answer, more than one way to approach it. So it's about you knowing what would work and justifying your response to prove that you know why you're doing is working. But this is really practical application. It's not just theory. And so inside the course, I teach you a very clear, concise writing. I give you kind of a format to follow, and then you get right in and rolling. Both of these responses are about 150 to 300 words. When you're writing any kind of a response, you always want to hopefully land your response closer to the maximum word count than the minimum. And that's because it shows that you have more to say. You have more knowledge about it, right? So I like to just that's just a little tip of the trade. You want to be closer to the max than not. So some of the testing, registration, and logistics that you need to know is that each of your state's credentialing site will link you to the National Evaluation Series, the NES website. In California, it's the CTC website will link you, but you will need to go to the NES site to register. You can take this exam year-round. There are testing centers in your area. These are Pearson is the publisher, but you are also offered the option of doing home online proctoring. Now, I will say pros and cons to this. When I had hundreds and hundreds of teachers that I supported with the RICA, we had 80% pass rate, and they would come to me and tell me that the online proctoring, if anything went wrong at the home, something distracted them, it could totally kick them out. And it threw a lot of people for a loop, to say the least. So online proctoring, you just really have to know your situation. I would recommend if you're kind of in a rural area and a testing center is far away, it might be the best option for you. But my recommendation is get your spouse, your kids, and your pets out of the house and put a note on your door not to disturb you, because you have to sit there for 4 hours uninterrupted. Just words of wisdom. The cost, again, is going to vary state by state. Now, there is a retake policy, which also varies by state, but generally speaking, if you take the exam and you do not pass and you need to retake it, there is a 45-day wait period. And that is from the date that you take the exam. And the reason that they do this is they want to ensure that when you come in to retest, you are not taking the same version of the exam that you took the first time. So they have to wait for that cycle, because there's like 5 or 6 different cycles, and that will ensure that you get a different version. So if you are on any kind of a time crunch, like your district is telling you you need this exam passed by such and such a date, you need to take that 45-day wait period into consideration. Don't procrastinate. Get yourself really, really well prepped so you only have to do it once. There are alternative testing arrangements. What that means is that under some circumstances, you may be entitled to additional time. And these are all available on the website. You can apply for this for free. They will look at your documentation of whatever reason you have for needing extra time. I know some that have actually been used before. Those test takers that have attention deficit disorder, they have a cognitive learning disability like dyslexia themselves. They might have a medical condition that requires them to have frequent breaks. And if English is not the primary language, and so they give additional time. On the NES website, there is a free practice test that you can use. And I will say this, practice tests are important, but you don't want the practice test to be your only source of preparation. A practice exam should test your knowledge. It's not going to teach you the knowledge. So you have to absorb the knowledge in another way, which is one of the things that my course will do for you. Now, I did want to show you, this came from one of my members who passed this fairly recently. She sent me this. I love getting the emails. I passed. It's so exciting. And so I wanted you to see what a score report looks like. It comes in 3 different sections. I don't know how different they're going to look depending on the state, but this one's in North Carolina. And you can see here that what you will see is the teacher's score and what the passing score was. She killed it. She absolutely killed it. I was so impressed. So the standard in North Carolina was 233. She passed it. The national benchmark is 240. She got the 289. You can see here, that's the first part. So you'll get that, that wonderful big thing in your email that we love to see. The next part is going to give you the diagnostic breakdown of your multiple choice section. Now, this is really helpful, especially if you have to retest, because it's going to give you the specific areas that you were weak in. And you want to actually analyze this. So you can see in sub area 1, she maxed this puppy out, man. She killed it. And so there were 37 questions. She got 37 correct. I was blown away. In the reading development, you can see she only missed 1. So she had 1 in that promoting academic language. And again, she only missed 1 in the assessment. Again, wow, I was super impressed. She worked really hard. She would send me questions every now and then, like, okay, I'm struggling with this concept, and we would kind of talk through it. So it was great to see her do so well. The last part of the score report is going to give you the diagnostic breakdown of your constructed responses so that you can see here. So there's a maximum score of 8 for each of these. Her score was a 6. And again, she had just such a strong showing across the board that she passed this with no problem. But it also tells you here 20% of your score is based on this. So 80% came from that really strong piece. But that's what it will look like. So if you have ever taken the exam and you did not pass, go back and pull this up, because this will show you those areas that you really, really want to dig into. Okay, so let me tell you about what I do. And again, I have been supporting teachers with their reading competency exams since about 2018. It was RICA Prep 101 when I supported the RICA. We've now, since California moved to the Foundations of Reading, I've moved there as well. And the content is almost identical. As a reading specialist, as somebody who lived this life for 30 years, this content is like the back of my hand. I still train schools and coach intervention teachers. That's what I do. That's in my consulting business. But the content is all very much the same. So Fort Prep 101 is the name of my course, and this is a fully asynchronous course that covers all 4 sub areas with video recorded lessons. There's about 8 or 9 hours of recorded lessons. They look very much like what you've gone through here, right? Slide deck with me talking over, voiceover, very engaging, me explaining, me teaching you the content. This is not me telling you what you need to know. This is me saying, here's what you need to know, and this is what it looks like in your classroom, and this is how you do it. So it's very much professional development for you. Inside of the course, there is a study planner. There is a handbook that I created that you can print out and take your notes and guide along. There are guides, there are templates, and there are practice tests included. I have 3 different types of memberships, which I'll show you in a moment. But for the VIP member, the member that wants to have more of a coaching experience with me, I actually will read and coach you with your writing to make sure that you're dialed in there. If that feels, sometimes people get really concerned and just fearful of their writing. And so that's one way to kind of just have me a little more on speed dial, if you will. This is really a supportive and visual and teacher-friendly type of instruction. It is meant to teach you. I am a teacher. That's what I've done, you know. I was never a professor that sat and lectured. I was in the trenches just like you guys, so that's what I do. Everything I teach, I actually use my strategies with my students, with you. There is a mobile app that you can actually download on your mobile devices so that if you're studying off of a desktop or a laptop and you want to grab it on your tablet or your phone for a quick review, you can do that. So my website, my web host's name is Kajabi. And if you just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and type in Kajabi, it's a black icon, and this will actually sync all of your devices. You have unlimited access to your course while you have your membership active. So there are 2 yearly memberships and there's 1 monthly version. So as long as your membership is active, you have access to that. And there are 3 different pricing options that hopefully make that more budget friendly. I just love this page because it's the landing page for the course, and it reminds me of all the wonderful teachers that I supported with the RICA. I did many live workshops with my teachers. We would do Saturday workshops. I really bond with my teachers. And so I used to always take pictures. Zoom lets me do a screenshot. And so this was my homepage just to remind me that, and remind you that there are teachers just like you out there trying, you know, pushing through the grind. That is for sure. So also another, and this should really be an enticement to you. While you're preparing for this exam, you can actually earn a unit of professional development graduate credit through UMass Global. So in most districts, the way you move up, or most states, the way you move up the salary schedule to make more money is to earn more units. So if you're a new teacher, you're really low on the salary schedule, right? Because you're new, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have as many units most often. What you want to do early in your career is accumulate as many units as you can so that you can move up that salary schedule as early as possible. This is a lot of reason teachers go back and get their master's degree right away, because it pushes them way up on the salary schedule. So you can actually earn a unit through UMass Global for $60. That's the cost for their unit. And actually all of my courses, my intervention courses also have that available. So I want you to really understand that, yes, this is a course to teach you how to pass the exam, to teach you the content for the exam, but you're not just here to pass the exam. You're here to become that teacher that your students never forget. I know why we go into this. There is not a teacher that I've ever met that didn't go into this with their heart on their sleeve, wanting to change lives for kids, wanting to make a difference. And the way we have to do that, not just with our wonderful personalities and open arms, but we have to be able to give them the tools that they need to be successful. And this is part of how we do that. I work a great deal with brand new teachers, and I don't know if you're aware of this statistic, but it's scary as can be. About half of new teachers will leave the profession in 5 years because they're not prepared. They're overwhelmed. They didn't get the tools that they needed. Universities, quite honestly, at least in my experience, hopefully you have a better one. Universities are not doing a great job out there. A lot of our state offices of education are trying to kind of fill the gaps and things like that. So hopefully you're getting some great professional development. If you're in Mississippi, I think you're getting some great professional development. Ohio's starting to kick in there too. So, but you have to have the tools. It's very disheartening. You've spent all this time, all this money, all this stress, right? And then you're like, I can't do it. I want you prepared. I want you ready to do this. So this is more than just test prep. It really is professional development. That's why you can earn the unit. It's about learning the science of reading and structured literacy. It's about applying all of this into real classroom realities, not just learning the theory, but knowing how it's going to look in your class. It's about learning those instructional practices that will actually help your kids learn. So you're going to walk away with more than a passing score. You're going to walk away with really the tools that you need to be successful. And I love to say this course was built for the teacher you're becoming, not just the test you're preparing to take. I have had, I've worked with so many, probably up in the thousand, between 1,500 and 2,000 teachers, okay, through the RICA work that I did. And they're working so hard. And when they finish this exam, I have people that will take the course, pass the exam, and continue to use my course because of the strategies. They're like, I need to, for another month, I'm going to pull this strategy. I want to go through and then look at this. This here is just a snippet of a few of the Google reviews that were left by my students for RICA. If you want to read more, just Google RICA Prep 101. Over 200 reviews, 5-star, wonderful. They are the kindest people in the world, because I know it's different. You're hearing it from me and you're like, she did this. She's selling you something. Yeah, I get it. Don't listen to me. Listen to them. Okay. That's where I'm going to direct you. Now, here are the 3 options if you are interested. 2 of these are yearly memberships. Now, the yearly memberships do not automatically renew. So you pay for 1 year, and at the end of the year, it goes away. It's not going to renew for another amount. If you're like me, you forget what you've subscribed to, and then pretty soon you've got all these charges. So the standard membership gives you access for 12 months. It costs $147. It's a one-time fee. It works out to $12 a month, but you have to pay it in the one fee. This is best really for a self-paced learner. You want all of the content, but you don't necessarily need me looking at your writing. You are going to, you're pretty well driven to do it yourself. And the guides and things that are in there are going to be sufficient for you. The VIP member is for somebody who wants a little bit of a closer relationship with me. They want to get that additional feedback for the writing. You might feel a little more hesitant, I suppose, and need to kind of chat through some things. This is more that person. It includes everything the standard has, which is all of the content. But the VIP member is also able to earn that unit. The single unit has to be a VIP membership because part of that requirement is you have to write the practice responses and share them with me. So if you're interested in the unit, which I strongly encourage you to do, you want to consider the VIP. So this one works out to $15 a month. Then there is a monthly plan, and this is for somebody who this might seem like a big chunk just at one time, and you want to kind of space it out. So this is a 3-month commitment. It's $47 a month. You have to commit yourself for 3 months, and this is for somebody who this will be a renewable subscription. So it is monthly until you cancel it through me. Okay. That will come back. Now, what I will say is I always love to, as a thank you for those of you spending some time with me, offer you a discount for being here. So I would like you to write down this coupon code, because if you are interested in joining, excuse me, if you are interested in joining, you can earn a 10% off, excuse me, by using the coupon Fort Newbie 511, which is today's date. This is a coupon that will be, it works on either of the yearly memberships. It will not work on the monthly. So, and it expires on Thursday. So if you're interested, you want to kind of make that decision by Thursday. Otherwise, I offer one every month at these webinars. Okay. So here's the next step. If you like what you're hearing, if you like my style, if you are thinking, yeah, I need somebody to just kind of help me, you are welcome to join the course and enroll today. The moment you join, you have access. You can get started right away. Those that had a current RICA Prep 101 membership have already been given access to this. Most of those people have already expired, but there might be a few who joined me late last year. So that is an option for you. My website and where all of this is housed is emilymuccianti.com, and I'll drop that link in the chat for you also when I end the recording. But I just really want to express my appreciation. Thank you for sharing your time with me. For those of you that are interested, I'm going to end the recording and then take you into the course and show you what it looks like so you can get your eyeballs in it. You can see what kinds of things are there. And if there are any questions that you have, and you are welcome to ask them here, or please write down my email, which is readingdiva06@gmail.com. And I'm happy to do that too. Let's see. Oh, let's see, Sarah. I would love to hear your thoughts. Oops, gotta change that. I would love to hear your thoughts on how your course in terms of like presentation and style is similar to something like Cox Campus, structured literacy modules. I had to do that this year already and struggled with the style of the content delivery. I'm not familiar with their delivery, but I'm going to show you mine and you can make a judgment. How about that? I'll let you I'll show you kind of a snippet. We'll run through one of those and you can see it. Because you're right, there are people out there that have a lot of knowledge, but we all do things a little bit differently. I remember there was one professor that did some RICA support things many years ago on YouTube. Super sweet guy. He was incredibly boring. And I would have people go, I can't listen to him. I just can't do it. Super sweet, but so I get it. You want to find a good match. So let's do that. But I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and then take you through. So thank you for that.